Okay, great. So again, aloha, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking a bit about data management, the most enthralling topic you've ever heard of in your lives, I'm sure, but it's actually super important. What I've got here is a screenshot from my research lab of a file folder structure. And this is one of the things I'm going to want you guys to, just take a screenshot and insert into the LaLima exercise, which you'll work on right after this. And basically what this is showing is we've got this drive, the Z drive, and we've got projects. We've got a million different projects. We've got an effort where we collect imagery and data using helicopters. So this is helicopter data. This is in a place, so then we do it by place. And so this is in HAVO, short for Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And then we do it by date. And so this is the date of the last helicopter mission that we did doing mapping for ROD, and ROD is on the end, so Rapidohia in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And so this sort of file folder naming convention is helpful for us, where it's, what's general, like, okay, this is in projects, what kind of project? This is a helicopter project. Where is it located? I'm a geographer, I think sort of spatially about where this is, and we're using HAVO as our place designation. And then the date, and then some additional specific information about, was this for Firetree? No, this was for Rapidohia, right? And then within that folder, we've got a series of subfolders. And one is ArcMap. And in the lab, sometimes we're using an older version of ArcMap. So that's why it's not ArcGIS Pro, which is what you guys are learning. You guys are the future. And then we've got flight planning. So when we're going to do a mission, we have to figure out some stuff about flight altitude and, flight plans and coverage. And so all that stuff goes in that folder. IMG, those are the individual images that we collect from the cameras that we mount on the helicopter. So we have thousands and thousands of photos. Those are all in there. MISC, that's like miscellaneous. If the people need us to build a map or, share a presentation or something, it goes in there. And then Pix4D, that's where we do some additional processing to generate orthomosaics and stuff. But it's just kind of the reason I'm sharing this with you is this idea about sort of, folders, setup, and data management, that it all makes sense. And the real sort of key for me is that if somebody who is not you looked at your, file folder structure and was trying to find something, they'd be able to find it, right? Because how you got things laid out are logic and, logical and named well and consistent. And so somebody who's, somewhat familiar with the project, but not you, could be able to sort of figure out and try to get to the data that is needed. Because there's a unfortunate legacy of, particularly at the sort of master student level, of students doing these awesome projects, they've got all these data, and then they graduate and leave, and then nobody knows where the hell anything is, because they're like file naming, it's just all over, it's a mess, right? It makes sense to you because you made it, but doesn't make sense to anybody else. So you want to think sort of, bigger in terms of, curating data and how to do that. So a little bit about that. So this kind of idea about a screenshot, that's one of the things I'm going to want you guys to submit on LaLima once we go through this live demo, and then you guys do it yourselves. So again, project data management, you could break it down much more in detail than what I have here, but basically there's some kind of project topic or some kind of idea, right? You're interested in mapping cultural resources in Ka'u. Again, whatever it could be, right? Or invasive species on Maui and TNC land for Himalayan ginger, right? Whatever the thing is that you're interested in. And presumably you've got a hypothesis you're testing or some kind of deliverable you're trying to sort of get out the door associated with this project topic or idea. And, from the context of what I'm speaking, like there's going to be some kind of spatial component to this, right? And so there's data, there's images, there's, polygons, there's points people have collected, whatever it is, right? There's data. And so you need to get those data, know what the data are that you need to do the project, see if those data exist. If they don't exist, can you create them yourselves? Get all those data layers that are helpful, and then have them organized in a way that makes sense. Then, analyze the data, and that's what a lot of this class is about. this course, I should say, this class is more about point number 2, they're organizing the data. And then the last part, which is, why you do this in the first place, is interpreting the results, right? So what does this mean? What did we learn? How can we sort of go from here? So again, today we're just going to have a small taste of getting and organizing the data. And I just wanted to sort of walk you through how I might start doing this for some kind of a project, and how I might sort of set things up. And then I'm going to ask you guys to do a similar thing and using some kind of other data that you find. Okay, so I'm about to jump into this idea about the live demo. We'll see if it works. May or may not work, may just crash and burn, but hopefully it'll work out reasonably well. And then again, I'm going to have you guys do an in-class activity, and you're going to turn something in. And hopefully you can do this in the context of today's class. If not, you have until end of the day today to turn this in. And it's pretty easy. It's just insert a screenshot of the folder structure, like what I showed on the title slide, and a screenshot of the ArcGIS Pro project that you generate with the layers that you bring in, right? So I can see what you downloaded and brought into the program. If you want to have a sentence or two explaining, like, here's what I grabbed, that's great too, right? So it's not a big ask, but just to make sure that you guys can kind of do this thing. Okay, any questions before I jump into the demo part here? I want to make sure that I've got this open in case I see this, and I want to make sure that I've got this guy so that I can see if folks are trying to get in. But I think everybody in that's going to be in. Okay, doesn't look like I'm seeing any questions here. And then again, in La Lima, under assignments, there's a new assignment called in-class data management. That's where you're going to submit this stuff. And again, lab 1 is due Monday. This in-class data management guys do, hopefully you can just knock it out in class, right? Just be done with it, but you have until the end of the day. Okay. All right, so I'm interested in doing some kind of spatial project, and I want it to be here in Hawaii. You guys may or may not be familiar with this resource, but if you just type in Hawaii GIS, the first hit you'll get is really, really helpful. It's the Hawaii statewide GIS program. Now, for future projects or today's in-class assignment, you do not have to use data from Hawaii. Okay, you can use data from Alaska, you can do from Fiji, whatever. I don't care, right? But I'm just using this as part of the demo. If you want to use data from here for your in-class, that's great. But if you want to use something else, that's fantastic. Finding data is a really important skill. And unfortunately, it's a little bit more like detective sleuthing than as straightforward as you might imagine. Although basic search tools like Hawaii GIS is always a good place to start. So this Hawaii statewide GIS program, they've got all sorts of great things. Okay, so it's from the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, and all kinds of cool things: ArcGIS online maps, online interactive maps for census, and all kinds of things. Right. Again, just for today, we're going to focus on the sort of GIS links, and we're going to go to download GIS data. And that'll bring up, this whole host of different types of data which are here. So starts out agriculture and farming, biological and ecologic. Some of you guys may have seen this kind of thing before, but administrative, political boundaries, right? All kinds of atmospheric and climate, all kinds of things. I'll go all the way down the end. I just don't know what the end is. So utilities networks, you can see where offshore sewer lines are, and on-site sewer disposal systems, if that's of interest to you. Roads, right? All kinds of things are on here. It's worth spending a little bit of time and getting a sense about the available data. But again, for the purposes of today, I'm just going to start in agriculture and farming. And so up here is we've got 5 or 6 different data layers here. Agricultural land use baseline from 2015, agricultural land use baseline from 2020, these agricultural land use maps, historical pineapple lands, historical sugarcane lands. All right, sugarcane, that sounds interesting to me. So you're provided these 3 different links for each of these guys. So one is a preview, and that just gives you a sense about what are we talking about here, right? So in this case, it looks like it's going to be polygons. And this map, it's for island of Oahu. Is the data only for Oahu or is it the whole state? Well, this tells me it's available statewide and for multiple years. So that's helpful information. There's also this metadata that's associated with it. That's typically a PDF file. And so this is really important. So this is helpful information. So what do we got? Sugarcane from 1900, 1920, and 1937. It's a polygon. It's complete. It's these different islands. And some things about the projection, right? So in Geography 201, you should have learned a little bit about, projections and coordinate systems and datums and things. It's helpful if all the projections and datums of the data you're using within the project are the same. If they're not the same, it's very important that they're all correct, because ArcGIS Pro is able to sort of reproject on the fly to make things line up as they should. But all that information needs to be correct for that to work. And then you've got this sort of download guy. And usually in the download guy, this metadata is included, and we'll see if it is or not. So I want to do a project about sugarcane and see how sugarcane has changed on Big Island over time. So that's what I want to do, right? This is interesting to me, but it could as easily be, carbon assessment, right? But I'm doing sugarcane and I want to know how it's sort of changed over time. So I want to download this guy. And okay, so this is, all right, I found some data, I want to download it. So I say, okay. And so I'm not just going to put it in the random downloads file, right, where everything is, and it's a huge mess, right? I'm going to put it in a place that I can find and work with. And so for me, again, for this class, okay, I've got this folder, Geography 480, RP. There's lab 1, right? I'm not going to put in lab 1. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this in class, and I'm going to call it sugar for me. Data management. Right, so okay, in class, sugarcane, data management. And then inside there, I'm going to make a new folder called data. Easy. All right, so then I'm going to save that guy. And so that's, again, if from the metadata, that's from 1900, 1920 to 1937. Well, that's pretty cool. But maybe I also want to know what the deals with sugarcane on Hawaii as of 2020. So, okay, islands of Hawaii and Oahu are also available. This is showing Kauai. So it sounds like I can use this. Maybe there's some metadata. Yes, that's great. And hopefully that's included in this guy. And I'm going to download this thing as well. Again, inside the class, this is guy, and then in data, beautiful. So I've got these guys downloaded, but the GIS program can't see them until I unzip them. Again, this is kind of an important data step for this. So I go in here, I go into data, and then I got to right click on this guy, and I'll just do extract all, and I'll say extract, and it'll do its thing. And it looks like, oh, there's a PDF in here. Great, so that's that sort of metadata. So I'm happy about that. And then I got to do the same thing with the historical sugarcane data. Extract it all. Great, and again, there's some kind of a, so great, awesome. So I've got my data in here, and now I'm ready to start checking out the data. I'm playing around with it a little bit. So ArcGIS Pro, if I can find this guy. So the next step, right, we're going to create a new project. And again, we want it to be organized and named and exist in a place where, which makes sense, and we can find it again later. So I'm going to make a new map. And I'm going to, again, navigate to the place where I'm working, which is for me on the E drive. For you guys, it'll probably be on the C drive in class. So that's where I want to create this guy. And I'm going to call it in class sugar data management. Great. Again, you guys should, hopefully this should be, very familiar with you to you at this point. So I bring this up, and now I need to populate it with these data that I've downloaded. So I'm going to add the data. And again, I'm going to go to this place where I've got this stuff in the data folder here. Let's start with the historical sugarcane. So it's 3 individual shape files. That's how this is set up. So I'm going to highlight these guys, and I'm going to say, okay. And so, and I want to focus on Big Island. That's where I'm located. And just to sort of see what these guys look like. So here's what it was in, let me close this guy down. Here's what it was in 1900. Here's what it was in 1920. So a little bit of change, not too much. And then in 1937. Okay, right on, very cool. And now I also want to add in the data for 2020. Okay, this looks a little bit different, right? And so presumably this is not all sugarcane, right? So this is agricultural data, but it's not all sugarcane. If I go to the this in-class guy for my ag land in 2020, and I look at the metadata here, it'll tell me some information, including different attributes. So these are polygons, and there's a polygon guy called crops 2020, and these are the different crop categories. So in here is banana, coffee, dairy, papaya, but there's also sugar. Okay, so for my interest, I care about sugar, so I want to isolate out sugar. All right, but it's in there, or and there may or may not be sugar on Hawaii Island. I'm going to expand this. I'm going to do a quick poll. Who in the chat, or yeah, put it in the chat. Do you think there's sugarcane on Hawaii Island right now? Commercial sugarcane? All right, I'm seeing some no's. I grow sugarcane in my garden, right? I've got like 6 stalks. That doesn't count. That's not like, commercial production of sugarcane. So I'm seeing, most folks are saying no. And so we'll see, right? We'll see if there's any sugar here. And again, let me zoom back out again. This is these data layers cover not just Big Island, even though that's what I'm interested in, but they cover some of the other islands as well. The 2020 agricultural update, it is incomplete. Maui Nui is done. It hasn't been posted yet, but that'll be posted shortly. Okay, so if I want to know if there is sugar on Big Island, and I was just looking at this metadata guy, which told me about the attributes in this crops 2020. Well, if I right click on this guy and I go to the attribute table, for every single polygon, right, it'll tell me this FID, which is a sort of unique identifier, what the thing is. It's a polygon, what the crop type is. So this is diversified crop. The one that I happen to highlight right here is diversified crop. The acreage, and then the shape length and the shape area, these are in meters, I believe. So for example, if I zoom to this guy, so this one that's highlighted is this polygon right here, right? So it's diversified crop, and it is like where it's in kind of Waimea area. Okay, I care about sugar. I don't care about diversified crop. My project is about sugar. In order to see if there is any sugar here, I can do a selection, and I can select by attributes. Okay, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with this or not, but under selection, and again, from the select by attributes, select by location, these are helpful things to help you work out some things for Lab 1 if you haven't already done this. But I'm going to select by attributes. So ag land use 2020 selection. I want a new selection. Okay, what's the selection that I want? I want it to be, I don't care about FID, but I want crops. I want crops equal to sugar. Okay, great. And I don't care about the other islands, right? And I also want the island to be equal to Big Island. And then I'm going to apply that guy. Okay, did anything happen? All right, it's hard to see, but something happened, right? Way up here, right? Way up here, there is this sort of commercial sugar that's being planted, and it's actually associated with, they're using it to make rum. And it's sort of, they're using a traditional, it's very cool. I think it's Kuleana Rum Works. But so this is commercial sugar on Big Island, but it's embedded in this larger 2020 ag guy. right? And I don't want it to be embedded in this 2020 ag guide. I only care about Big Island. So I want to make a new layer, which is only this sugar layer for Big Island. And I've successfully selected only this guy, nothing else is selected. But to make a new layer, a good way to do that is to right click on the parent guy, and then to go to data and then export features. And again, this is all recorded, so you guys can play this again. And so the input feature is Ag Land Use 2020, right on. The location is into this geodatabase, which was generated when I made this project in the first place. So I'm happy about that. I like that location. And then the output name I'm going to call sugar, BI for Big Island, and then 2020. And I'm going to say OK. And so I've created this new guy here, sugar BI 2020. If I turn off the ag land use, right, this is all that's left. Okay, that's all that's left. For the, let's go back to the 1900, right? The 1900 guy, it's the whole state, right? So it's sugar in the whole state in 1900. But again, I only care about sugar for Big Island. So again, if I go to map, I can also do a selection, not select by attribute, because unfortunately this guy, if I open up its attribute table, it doesn't give me like an per island column. It just has year and polygon or whatever. The people that made this data are not as good as the people that made the other data. But I can still do a selection where I just select and I just draw a rectangle on here. And I've now selected only those guys which are in this geographic area. And then I can do the same thing. I right click on here and I go to data and I go to export features. Great. And it'll go into the same geodatabase associated with this project. And now I want this guy to be sugar BI 1900. And OK. And so now if I turn off, let me zoom out a little bit. If I turn off the big sugarcane guy, I'm only left with sugarcane for Hawaii Island. And one thing to note about where these guys are located, if you go to view, there's this catalog pane. And in the catalog pane are the databases, including the database associated with this project that we created. And in there are now the Sugar Big Island 1900 and the Sugar Big Island 2020. Okay, so they're now located within this geodatabase. So I've got great stuff going on here inside this in-class sugar data management guy. I've got all this beautiful stuff. I've got this geodatabase, and inside this geodatabase, buried in these files, are the new files that I've generated. Okay, the new files that I've generated. So that was basically what I wanted to demonstrate for you guys. So in the end, what I'd like you to do is just like a screenshot of this file explorer. What you're seeing right here would be fine, right? That shows data and it shows that you made this, ArcGIS project. That's totally fine. And then maybe again, it can just be a screenshot of what you guys did for your thing. And it can't be sugar. It can be anything else. It just can't be sugar. Okay. So that's all I'm asking you guys to do. I'm going to stop sharing. I'll be available for the duration. You guys have until midnight to do that. But again, it should take you, I hope, just like, 10, 20 minutes, hopefully just the rest of class time. And again, once you get those layers in, then it's where you can do some interesting things. Like for me, I would want to do some calculations about, acreage of sugarcane over time, make a graph, think about that, show places which lost sugar, places which were consistent in sugar. You can do all kinds of different analyses. But this is just about kind of, getting the data in and organizing them. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording.